Hello everybody, welcome back to Screenstars. I'm here today to bring you my review for the 2023 horror film Natty Knocks. The film is directed by Dwight H. Little and it stars horror legends Bill Moseley, Danielle Harris and Robert Englund, as well as Charlotte Fountain Jardim and Thomas Robbie. Right, okay. The film focuses on a bunch of youths who in their hometown there is like a local legend called Natty Knocks, who was a promiscuous woman back in the day who was essentially burnt by the townsfolk for, I don't know, they kind of claimed she was a witch, but she was basically sleeping with all their husbands. So they've got this town legend of Natty Knocks sort of thing, where you knock on the door 9 times, so on and so forth. However, a couple of the youths decide to play a game. They play the Natty Knocks games. They go up to someone's door, knock on the door, and then they witness a serial killer essentially getting on with what he does best, which is kill. And that kind of triggers a series of events where these youths are trying desperately to report this incident to the police while trying to keep out of arm's length of this local serial killer. Right, what are my thoughts on Natty Knocks? Well, I mean, there's an awful lot of talent here involved with this film. Dwight H. Little, he directed Halloween 4. Obviously, we've got Danielle Harris here, who obviously was in Halloween 4 and the Halloween movies and other horror franchises like the Rob Zombie Halloween as well. She's one of the producers on this film. And then obviously you've got Bill Moseley and Robert Englund, both horror legends in their own right. So there's a lot going on here with this film. And going into this film, you kind of... It's not what you expect it to be, I suppose, is the best way I can describe it. You go into this film thinking it's going to be like, you know, one of those supernatural things, you know, this Natty Knocks, this woman that's burnt alive by the townsfolk, kind of coming back and taking her vengeance. And while that's not strictly true, there are elements of truth to that, I suppose. And what you really get here is a bunch of like teens and kids trying to evade this serial killer. And the serial killer is actually played quite sinister, quite effectively, I suppose, is what I want to say, by Bill Moseley, who is this police officer, local police officer, who has a connection to this Natty, who was burnt at the stake, not at the stake, by the townsfolk, and it's kind of there's an obsession there, and there is definitely a connection there, and he kind of goes around killing. So it's kind of a serial killer film, this. It reminded me in a lot of ways of that film that came out, I don't know, 2, 3, 4 years ago. That was it, Summer of '69, that had like that Stranger Things vibe to it, and kids convinced their neighbour was a serial killer. And this has a similar feel to it, if you like. You've got these kids trying to prove that the serial killer's out there with little luck, sort of thing, and trying desperately to keep out of the way of this serial killer. There is a supernatural element to this film, but I don't want to spoil it for anybody that does want to watch this. But it's pretty thin, really, and it's only kind of hinted at loosely at parts in the film and then kind of leaned into heavily at the end, I suppose. And so, I mean, while you do get a strong performance here by Bill Moseley as a serial killer, I don't think they kind of do enough with that character. And Robert Englund is really a glorified cameo in this film. He's not given a lot to do. He's Robert Englund at the end of the day, though it's always fun to see him in these kind of horror movies. And Danielle Harris kind of plays the mother of the teens that are kind of embroiled in this issue and, you know, trying to prove the existence of this serial killer. So there's potential here in this film. I think because I went into this film expecting something else, it kind of disappointed. Certainly until I kind of got my head around the fact that, okay, well, this is a serial killer film, really. It's not really a, a supernatural horror film or anything like that. But as I've said, there is some supernatural elements in the film. But it's definitely competently made. There are moments in the film where it feels quite nicely polished, and there are moments in the film where it feels low budget. It feels a little bit unbalanced, and it feels a little bit tonally off at times. It starts off at times, it's trying to lean into humour a little bit early on, and then it kind of gets darker and more sinister as the film goes on, and it just feels a little bit unbalanced tonally. And this Bill Moseley kind of playing the serial killer. When more is revealed about him and his connection to Natty, it makes you kind of question, okay, how has he got away with this for so long? What he's been doing? He's supposed to be a police officer. I'm sure things would have been questioned before now. But I certainly think this is a decent attempt. I think it's severely flawed at times. But if you go into it knowing what to expect with this film, I think you're likely to enjoy it a little bit more. I think you feel like you're being missold a film here a little bit. So make sure you kind of read the synopsis, understand what you're going in to watch. It's more of a serial killer film than anything. But beyond that, it's watchable for sure. It's just above average in my opinion. It could have done with being a bit scarier. It could have done, I think, leaning more heavily into the supernatural elements until, it kind of leaves it too late for me for that to really have any kind of impact. But yeah, it's certainly a watchable film. I didn't come out of this film thinking I wasted my time or anything like that. So yeah, check it out, guys, if you've not checked out Natty Knocks yet. So thanks for joining me. I will, of course, be back with plenty more reviews and content on the channel very, very soon.